Okay, good afternoon. My name is Marcia Goodman Hinterstitz. I co-facilitate the nominations committee together with my colleague Chris Miller, and we also have Melissa Ventura online. Hi, Melissa. So
Hello.
we're with Jordan is first as far as applying for the Board of Health or Conversion Therapy Mental Health Services Board. How you doing, Jordan?
Sorry, I was muted. I'm good, Marcia. How are you?
Pretty good. And I just wanted to ask you first, is there either of the boards that you prefer or?
I just was looking at the two most closely related to my professional experience. I
Right.
think it would just be the board or the council decision where I would better serve the city.
Right. So what are your interests as far as the different boards, as far as, do you understand the scope of work they do? Responsibilities?
I don't understand that fully. I was hoping to get a little bit more interest here,
Okay.
but my general interest is just giving back to the city.
Great. Great. Shelley, could you just give a real brief synopsis of each of those boards?
Sure. So I'm the liaison to the Board of Health. They meet every other month on the first Tuesday at 4 p.m. They are fully virtual. They discuss issues about, what are they talking about right now? COVID's lasting effects, a special grant that the city got that's regarding health education, to make sure that our residents are getting some of the education and understanding that they need about specific health issues. They are also talking about whether or not the county should have a health department to help us through if there's another pandemic like we saw with COVID. That's a county-wide thing, but the city is hoping to have a little bit of input into that. I think right now, and there's a new lead abatement program that the city is running to get some of the lead hazards out of city properties, so that we don't have the constant, elevated lead levels in our children. The mental health conversion therapy board has not yet met, thankfully. They meet only when there's a complaint about someone trying to do conversion therapy on a minor. So as of now, we've not had any complaints, so that board, although it's been created, has never had a reason to meet. So depending on what kind of level you're looking at volunteering, would, I guess, determine which one of those two, if you just want to be on standby just in case, or if you're willing to come in or not even come in. There's 6 meetings a year with the Board of Health.
Well, no, I think the Board of Health sounds wonderful. And I actually, Marcia may remember, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I presented my one research paper for my social work program about lead abatement issues to city council. And that was before the last grant was handed down for the program that's running right now. They hadn't secured the funding completely yet, but I was doing research for some policy classes. So I think that sounds like an excellent service or, thing.
Yeah, and as much as I think it was really great that we formed the Conversion Therapy Mental Health Services Board, and that will be there as needed. I think if you want to put a lot of energy, and I know you have passion about different policies, I think the Board of Health will probably be the best fit for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Chris for any questions, and then to Melissa.
Okay. Jordan, do you have any thoughts on ideas that you would have if you did join the Board of Health? things you feel they should address or look to?
Well, I definitely agree with the discussion surrounding the establishment of a countywide health department, being what is it? I think a tier 3 county. I think we're the only one in the state that doesn't have one. So just kind of bringing, social work, my area of expertise, and also addiction and things like that, to the board would be helpful in those types of discussions.
You, I know you mentioned about addiction, but do you see any like major issues specifically to the city of Reading that the Board of Health needs to address?
Nothing right off the top of my head in this moment. But
Fine.
of course, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I was just curious.
I mean, I think there's always ways that communication can improve between agencies that share responsibility in different aspects. I mean, I know in the addiction world specifically, I mean, there's SOS and COCA and a number of different agencies, both public and private, that help deal with certain issues. And I think just making sure that the proper messaging is getting out is one thing that I think a central board could manage.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you bring that up because SOS Berks has never really presented to the City Board of Health. And indeed, the majority of the overdose fatalities are occurring within the city. So, a good point that there are a lot of issues out there that I think could be come under the umbrella of the Board of Health, and certainly be stronger if we have a countywide Board of Health.
Thank you.
Melissa, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay. So anything more for us, Jordan? Do you feel you have a sense of how you would be meeting and what would be expected of you?
Yeah. I mean, I look forward to the opportunity if it's granted to me, and I hope that my voice can bring, more specific, but well, just a social work voice. I don't know who else is on the advisory committee, but I just hope that I would be able to make some type of contribution. So.
Yeah, and I guess, to be clearly transparent from my point of view, social work points of view are very important to have on, especially things like the Board of Health, anything that deals with human service related issues. So I'm glad that you decided to move forward and apply. So the way that the process works is that it comes before council at our next meeting, which will be next Monday for your appointment. And then you're notified by Michelle Smith, our deputy city clerk, and you're given the information you need when the meeting schedule is, if you're approved, okay?
Okay.
So, any other questions for us then?
I guess just lastly then would I be expected to attend on Monday, or would I just be notified as per the results?
You will be notified. You can always be sent a Zoom link if you want to listen to the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, and join by Zoom, you're welcome to.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Hope to see you soon, Jordan.
Same. Have a good rest of your night.
Sure.
All right.
Okay, so our next candidate is James Harris for the Planning Commission.
Hello,
How you doing?
I'm good.
Okay, so we have three council people that form the nominations committee. Myself, we have Chris Miller, and then virtually we have Melissa Ventura. So
Hello.
this will be for an appointment, Mr. Harris. So just want to get a little background about yourself and why you're interested in being on the Planning Commission.
Well, I've lived in Berks County now 8-9 years. Just relocated from Douglasville. So now I live in downtown Reading. I live in the Center Park area. And I've been on different boards and committees really for the last 15 years. And now that I'm a resident of the city, I want to be involved in some way. And planning and ethics and the other committees are in my area of expertise. So I applied when there was an opening.
And what's your understanding of the responsibilities of the planning commission?
Well, from what I read and from people that I spoke to in the area, the planning commission prepares development, they review plans and proposals of in different areas of people wanting to do business with the city, generally in the construction, property, parks, recreation, things like that. And
Yeah,
development.
sorry. Okay. Chris?
Hi, James. I don't know if you recognize my name. I think I know your wife, Tammy.
Yes, everyone knows my wife in Reading. Yes.
Right.
No one knows me. Everyone knows my wife. Yes.
Right. I sat on the board of the WCR when she was there, and the one question I have, I just want to make sure for clarification, because Cammy contacted me about looking at another house in Center Park that I had listed. I'm a realtor. And she told me, I thought she said that you were looking to buy an investment property. I didn't realize that the two of you moved into Center Park. So,
Yes.
and the only reason I'm asking that is because for this position, it must be a city resident. And I just want to make sure that we get clarification from the beginning.
Yeah, we've been here since before Thanksgiving.
Okay, good. Well, welcome to the neighborhood. I'm 2 blocks away. So
Okay.
I have to stop up sometime.
It's pretty
That's my
cool.
first question.
Parking tough.
What's
Yes,
that?
parking is pretty tough, but it's
Yes, it is.
you have to get creative.
Actually, your block is the one that just passed the parking permit ordinance last week, so we'll see how that works for the 400 block of Douglas Street. But my question to you is, do you have any thoughts on what you could bring to the planning commission? The planning group?
What I bring, I have a business background, corporate background, but I've been working in education for the last 16 years, generally as a school superintendent or a COO. And I handle the reorganization, the restructuring, the planning, the implementation. So what I bring is a data mindset. I really focus on KPIs, so key performance indicators, where if we do have a plan that we're moving forward with, that we create actionable, measurable steps to get to the end. The worst thing that could happen, or not the worst, one of the worst things that could happen is, okay, you're doing this project and in 3 years, you're still in the same place. You're being stagnant. We have to make sure that no matter what we're doing, project plan development, that there is progress being made. And what I bring is years of experience, really almost 20 years of putting together actionable steps to get to the end. And the ability to take a step back, regroup, and develop that tactic that will get us to where we need to be.
Okay, thank you.
Melissa?
Hi, James. Thank you for your interest.
Hello.
The commission currently meets on the fourth Tuesday of each month at 6 p.m. Will you be able to attend meetings regularly?
Yes, that's not a problem.
And do you have any ideas of what you would like to see the planning commission accomplish?
Well, I like to take a look at some of the things that are currently in the works and where they are progressing to or not progressing to. And if it's something that the city would like to move forward with, but is having problems, doing like a reboot and maybe readdressing some of the areas that are not working. Things that are working, figure out why they did work, and put in, like I said, steps that hold the developers accountable, the city accountable, so that we make progress. The worst thing that could happen is 5-6 years down the road and you're looking at the same open space and going, why isn't this done yet? Well, let's take a look at that, make sure that we're making progress and go from there. So I like to look at the things that haven't worked, because a lot of times they're good ideas It's just not the best execution.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, and I really appreciate your strategic approach to this. What would you think? You're new to the city of Reading, and welcome, and thank you for making your home here. What would you need to do to be able to get yourself to the point that you'd be able to do that assessment? What do you think you need to learn about the city?
Well, I've lived in Berks County now for a number of years, just not in the city of Reading. I lived in Douglasville.
Right.
I've lived all over the country, really, and I can identify certain trends and things that other cities have done wrong and that they've done right.
Mhm.
And coming into the city, I see a number of things that could be done differently in the city to make it more appealing to new visitors and new residents.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we need to have, the balance of our knowledge, but also people with some new ideas. So I appreciate you wanting to come forward with that, and appreciate, the work that you've done in education too. It's a challenge to be a superintendent of a school district.
Yes, it is.
Hard road. Any questions for us at all?
Well, your questions really told me what you need from me. What have you tried to do that just hasn't worked?
I think each of us probably has a different point of view. From what I've been able to see, and I think you spoke to when things don't move forward in development, we have approved a lot of developers who haven't necessarily been in the place to follow through with what their plans might have been.
Mhm.
So, and I'm not sure what happens with the planning commission as far as going back and looking at what we've approved this particular plan and nothing's happened with it. So I think that's where we get stuck sometimes, is maybe the developers not having the capacity. On the other hand, we have very high energy developers who sometimes feel they get caught up in the bureaucracy of the city to move their projects forward, and they get frustrated.
Right. Okay. Understandable.
And I think my comment would be, the city was sort of in a holding pattern for the last 8 years because of Act 47. Now, for the first time, we're really starting to see some significant development in the downtown. So the planning department's going to play a crucial role with that.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing I want to add is this is a very high intense commission to be on, because they have both work sessions and voting sessions. There's a lot of homework and an extensive amount of projects. I don't know, Shelley, can you give a sense of what the agendas look like? You sit in on those meetings? Or?
I do not sit on those meetings, but I do see their agendas, and they generally have, depending on how many projects come forward, anywhere from, I've seen 3, 4, sometimes there are 10. So it just depends on how many projects are being proposed to them at the time, how they're making their way through the zoning process, the planning process, some of the other employee, we have trades inspectors and lots of, our fire marshal have to all review those plans. So just depending on how they're, as Marcia said, the bureaucracy feels sometimes that it's slowing the projects down, but unfortunately they're necessary steps. So they do have their formal meetings on the 4th Tuesday. I believe they have their work sessions on the 2nd Tuesday, but I believe that's during the work day via Zoom to do some reviews amongst themselves so that they're prepared for the public meetings then on the 4th Tuesday.
Okay, any other questions, James?
No others.
Okay, so a little bit about how the process works. You may have heard that when we interviewed the previous candidate. The appointments are voted on by the city council at our next meeting, which will be next Monday. And then if you're approved, you are notified by Michelle Smith, our deputy city clerk. You do have to come in and get sworn in because you are taking on some responsibility, and then you will be notified of the meeting schedule in the next meeting and given any information you need to get on board.
Okay,
Okay, so you don't need to attend the meeting, but you're welcome to join in through Zoom if you'd like to watch the process of any council meeting, but the one that you would be voted on. Okay,
all
well,
right, well, thank
you.
you all.
Yeah, and it's great. I was really interested reading your resume. Been doing a lot of different diverse activities, so good luck with this.
Well, thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye. Okay, and we have one more candidate, Mr. Rabina. How are you doing, Phil?
You're mute. You're on mute.
He's still on mute.
Okay, there we go. Good
Okay.
evening. Or good
Good
afternoon,
evening.
I should say.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So Phil, you want to take another shot at being reappointed to the zoning hearing board, right?
Yes, I'm willing to do one last one. I must tell you, this would be my last one. Hopefully, my health and mental acuity would allow me to carry it through to the end. But if I found some of those things weren't working properly, I would give you due notice so that you could find somebody to replace me. I think the other thing you should know is that about halfway through this term, if I am appointed, I'm going to turn the chairmanship over to another one of our members, Jared Bars, who has had a lot of experience with it and a lot of community experience and knowledge, which would be very helpful. And this would give him some time to get used to it. I would be there to help him. And, I think we can continue our efforts to the benefit of the city.
Well, I want to thank you, Phil, for continuing to be willing to serve and passing on your expertise. With the background you have with zoning, what challenges do you think the city faces, and any thoughts on how things could be improved?
Well, I think a couple of things to work on. Number one, we're trying to cut down density, but we're still getting many areas of the city where single homes can be turned into apartments. And that's not healthy. It's not healthy for the parking. It's not healthy for the people. And we continue to get people who want to make apartments smaller and smaller. That's not a good thing. We're housing people. We're not housing family pets. And I think those are some things that we need to look at. On the positive side, you have an excellent zoning officer in Mr. Neff. We have excellent legal counsel in Steve Price. We work well together as a board. We disagree with each other or agree with each other professionally. And so I think that's the positive side. And I think I was listening to what you were talking about with planning, and projects are getting more complex. And you have to look at many, many different aspects. It's not just, is it in the zoning code or whatever, but what is the overall impact going to be, either currently or in the future? And I think that's a very important thing for anybody on this board to look at. And I would be the first to tell you that our board is getting a little on the older side. And I think we need to begin to look to new members, as people decide to continue or not continue. At this point, everybody's going to continue. And, we try to do our best. I think our track record where our decisions have been appealed has been excellent, because to my knowledge, we really have never been overturned. We've had one or two things remanded, but whatever our decision was on that, we were still supported in the courts. So that's, that's my thoughts on that matter.
Okay, Chris?
Thank you for appearing, Mr. Urbina. I know I've followed zoning via Zoom for the last couple of years. I know there's been some meetings that have gotten a little hot with issues. It takes a special caliber of person to be able to stay calm and work through it. And I just want to give you credit for that. And I also want to say the fact that you mentioned about staying on the board with the intent of somebody taking over the chairmanship is commendable, because for the time that you've been on the board, that's a lot of knowledge that really needs to be passed on to somebody else, so they just don't come in cold. And I think Jared is a good choice. I've watched him at several meetings. And I know we had a candidate to be reappointed to the Board of Health, and he took a similar attitude too, where he said, you know, it's probably time soon for me to get off this board, but I want to make sure there's somebody to step in while I'm still here. So I have to commend you for that. I don't really have any questions. I think you have a good understanding of the zoning board and you know what the issues are. But I did want to commend you for what you said about staying on. So thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate those comments.
Melissa?
Hi, Philip. I don't have any questions either.
Okay,
Yeah, and I do have one question. It's more about a process, and I probably should be bringing this up to all the boards, authorities, and commissions. You still meet virtually, am I correct?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
You still meet virtually?
Yes,
As-
we do.
How do you think that's impacting the process and moving forward? Where do you see that going?
Well, I must be honest with you. I think it has kind of worked well for us. I can't say that in all areas it would work, or with all boards and commissions. One of the things that has been helpful is oftentimes you will see maps or schematics displayed, but we actually have those full size that are mailed to us each month prior to the hearings. So we do have a chance to look over that. There's actually a couple of issues. Stenographers are very, very hard to find, and we've got a very good one. But I don't know whether she's going to be, for example, and I can't speak for her, whether she's going to want to drive to Reading to do the job when you can do that job virtually. The other thing that happens sometimes is with where we have interpreters. Interpreters are hard to get, good ones. There are people out there that say, oh, I'm an interpreter, but you need certification. You need some real expertise to do that properly. And sometimes these people are stacked to maybe 2 or 3 meetings in an evening, but they can get to all of them because we do things virtually. The same thing has even happened with a couple of attorneys. And I guess the last thing that I would say is if it comes to the point where the city says, look, we want all of you back, whatever, obviously we will comply with whatever the city asks us to do. But perhaps you could find out a way to get us parking passes that we could park in the lot that the police department uses. It's almost always empty in the evenings. And that would be another thing that, that would help. But, whatever you people decide, I mean, we work at we work for the city, so to speak. And so whatever comes will comes, and we'll try to work with it. But thus far, and we haven't had any complaints from either applicants that I am aware of or attorneys. So I'm saying it worked, it has worked well. Yes, in person is always good too, but we've tried to make it work, and part of it is getting good people, because interpreters and stenographers are very important people to what we do. So that's the
Yeah, I
best.
didn't want to say a decision isn't often either way, but I just thought it was good because you have the experience to get your feedback on that. So I really appreciate it. It gives us a good point of reference. And I think the piece about people needing to get from one place to another and the parking and all of that does tend to be a barrier for any functioning. So Phil, I just want to again appreciate everything you both do for zoning, what you do for the community that you live in. Really appreciate you as a constituent. So you know how the process goes, how we bring it before council. So you'll be notified by Shelley then as far as when the reappointment occurs, okay?
Okay, thank you. And I guess one of the things I'd just like to say for my board is that when something works well, it's not because of one person. It's because you've been able to have you're surrounded by good people. And I really enjoy my board and the people that I work with. And it's not my board. I mean, it's the city's board. And that has made the job very positive. So thank you. I appreciate it.
You
Thank
take
you.
care.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Good evening.
You too.
It was good to have good candidates. Okay, so the next thing we have on our agenda is we have 3 candidates to decide. 2 of them will be appointed to the electrical examining board. So I know, Melissa, you were going to be watching, I believe, the tape of the one interview.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know where we are with recommendations at this point.
I'm recommending the first 2 that we interviewed.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there like a standby list for the one person that obviously won't be picked this time that
Yeah.
they can be considered?
Yeah, absolutely. I hold applications for 2 years.
Okay.
So if there's an opening within those 2 years, then I'd go back to the third one. And let the committee determine whether you want to re-interview or just move them forward since you've gone through the process already.
So any thoughts, Chris?
I thought all 3 were good, that they have the knowledge. It's hard to decide from just an interview. But again, whichever 2 are picked, if the third one has an opportunity, if an opening occurs later on, I think that's important that I hate that we have 3 candidates and only 2 openings.
That doesn't happen very often. Which I guess is healthy to see that there's that many people interested.
Right.
And I feel they all bring their own set of qualities to it, so. I'm willing to go along with Melissa's recommendation.
I am too.
Okay. But the understanding, and now there isn't an alternate listed,
So that would be Jeff Hartman and Brian Anderson, just so I'm clear.
right?
Right.
So they would be put on the agenda and then the understanding, I think that we could speak to that at Monday's meeting. That we would want the other person to be considered for appointment if a vacancy does occur. Anything else on that appointment?
No.
Okay. Now, the next pieces, which is really important, is how to educate residents about board authority and commission vacancies and how to volunteer. And we've never really had a concerted effort for years to do this. I think maybe things that we did before when COVID hit, it sort of like all got put on the wayside. So any thoughts? I know Shelley, you've been working with this for years as far as what we might have done in the past.
So in the past, I think once or twice a year, Linda would do a display ad in the newspaper to try and get more people. But at this point, I'm not sure that's our best option, since
Right.
many people don't get a printed newspaper anymore. And those big display ads are very expensive.
Right.
So I'm not sure that's the best way at this point. So I'm also looking for some new ideas, things that we can do.
I know I mentioned in our meeting last week, our council meeting, I know I mentioned possibly posting on social media,
Mhm.
like the ones that are open, but like with a description of it. And I didn't know how to, if it should be like formatted as a, not a calendar, but like different boxes with each one.
Mhm.
So you can, instead of having like one post for each one, having it all on one with a description on it, maybe of each one that's what, yeah, each commission that's open and what's required on it, like a basic description of it. I didn't think about how to really post it on social media, but I thought social media would be good with the description on there.
Yeah, I agree that social media would be good. I'm not sure. Thinking about how many boards there are, that's a lot of information for one post. right?
Yeah,
So I don't necessarily disagree with that, but the print's gonna be really, really small on that, and I'm not sure how helpful that is, so.
Maybe one board a month or two.
Or a week, or
Right.
pick the top 5 with the most vacancies, that have a lot of turnover, or, that kind of thing, so that we can kind of target it a little bit better.
yeah.
I'm also, go on, Melissa.
No, I was agreeing with Shelley, sorry.
Okay, and now I'm gonna take it another step, which is a little more involved, is whether we can do some podcasts to talk, maybe have one of the board members having a discussion about the boards they serve on, just as information, and then to have that will always be there available for people to watch.
I think that the one thing that's important that I thought about, it's good to advertise so that people realize the boards are there, that they can serve on. But I think a lot of people really have a lot of questions, and there needs to be more of a one-on-one where somebody can specifically answer their question. I don't know if there's anything that we could coordinate to go out into the community that people could just get an idea. And I think what'll happen is, in addition to educating them, they may not be ready to serve on a board now, but
Right.
once they have the knowledge of what's involved and how much time's involved, there may come a time in their life where they're not ready yet.
But they might be.
Right. But I think in order to do that, specifically for the person, what their schedule is, what their lifestyle is, what's required of the board, that's more of like a one-on-one with questions, more than just listening to somebody.
Right.
I mean, we can do that on like BCTV and things like that to educate the people of the boards that exist and what's involved, but I still think we need to go out into the community.
Yeah.
And maybe, I think it was either Linda or Shelley mentioned about how one time there had been like open houses where throughout the community, there would be a setup where people could ask questions. But it might be good too, like I know Lowers Park is planning a block party later in the year. If there was a booth for people, from that neighborhood that could just come up and ask questions if they have an interest.
I think, and just to be fair to both Shelley and Linda, I think one of the reasons why this hasn't been able to go further, it's not really staffed the way it needs to be. So you have the city clerk's office doing all the heavy lifting as far as setting up the interviews, everything, but there's no one designated. And it might be the discussion we have to have with the administration is how we promote this as being vital to governance, that we need to have someone designated to be able to, I don't want to take away from anything you do, Shelley, but I also don't want to put more on your plate.
Right.
That what really needs to do to be able to, do all this
Maybe-
outreach.
Maybe it comes from the boards, like if there's an event, it would be the boards that would be there.
Right, and then I'm just thinking about all the coordination that would be required if there was an event, and
Right.
someone has a specific question about. Like today, we talked about the mental health conversion therapy board, then you have to have. Someone from every board there just in case, and not everybody may be necessary.
Right.
So I'm not sure, I don't disagree with that idea, I'm just not sure how you get. People there with enough knowledge across several of those boards perhaps to answer multiple.
I think it's
questions.
not like a given. I think this is more of a question, like, how can we do this? This is an option, because, I mean, really, it can even go farther, because I think a lot of people have questions about departments in city government.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
So-
interesting, because when I go to the different community events, you always have Bravo there, you always have Public Works there, you always have police and sometimes fire, but you never have the other parts of the city government for people to learn about, what's going on, that they can be part of. So you have us saying what we do for the community, but we want to be able to say, how can you be part of this?
I think it's a conversation that needs to be started,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not sure what the answer is and how it's created, but when you think of all the people that have questions about the codes department, or
Mhm.
if they have to come in to pay bills, and I understand the Citizen Service Center helps part of that, but not all of it.
right, and there's, the general. Residents who are, whether it's a city department, a county department, if it's somebody that they need to contact at the state, they're. When they're told they need to get some official document, they don't know where to start. They pick up and just kind of dial the first number they can find that they think might be kind of like it. And so we're constantly switchboarding, I'm sorry, that's not the city.
Got to be a better
You
way.
have to contact the county, but you're right, but I think it goes well beyond, what we can do at this level.
Right.
Kind of, it goes,
That's what I'm saying. I don't know what the answer is.
yeah,
but
I don't know either,
I think there's an answer. There's a need.
right?
Do you think this is something that we might want to put on the agenda, that this committee has noted as an issue, bringing it to the whole council and with the administration being there, saying we need to be looking at how we can be more dynamic and proactive about recruiting people for boards and authorities, and it needs to be a partnership with the administration?
Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, I know we have a lot on our plate, there may be a time within the next couple months that we might be able to, because it's not something that's pressing, but I think it needs to happen.
Right.
Okay, I can be letting Donna know that and seeing how we can schedule it. And certainly, Shelley, for you to be attending that, so you can have some input,
Okay.
okay? Alrighty, I'm moving ahead on, is that it for where we are now? That, I see the next thing on the agenda is review pending application memo.
That's in the packet, it's the one that shows you where people are in the process.
Okay, oh, okay, I understand.
And just to point out, there are several on here that the mayor did not approve. So they will not be moving
here.
forward.
Is there any way to get like, what would be a reason that someone isn't approved?
I can't answer that, all I get is the little no is circled on the.
No, I'm
Okay.
saying, is there a way for us to find out why? Like, what would be a reason somebody isn't?
I don't know if Dolores can answer that, she's on the meeting today.
Is it that they're not approved, or they just haven't been reviewed?
No, they've come back with those.
So,
Okay.
now, is it my understanding with the parking authority, I thought that was always the mayor approval.
That's correct, but this applicant sent their form to me.
Okay,
So I forwarded it to the mayor, and I always just ask for the parking authority, that they let me know whether or not that person will be approved, so I can keep my records up to date with who's, current members. So that one, he has, full control over. I'm pretty sure that Kim Johnson for the Public Library Board, was because she's not a resident.
yeah, that might be just important to clarify that we can say that. And so we have outstanding, the charter board. And that's been, obviously, it's like 3/4 of a year that's been sitting there. I want to bring that to Donna's attention, so when the mayor is available, we can have a discussion about where that stands. And then we have under the plumbing board, Frank Foster and William Berger.
Yes,
Those are more current, though. Those are not having been sitting since August.
correct.
Shelley. The Citizens Initiative,
Yes.
can you give some background?
That was intended to be similar to the youth commission, where there would be representatives from each district, council district, serving on that commission to bring issues from the neighborhoods forward to the city so that they could be addressed.
Okay,
It was kind of like a go-between, you know, the commission would bring items forward rather than speaking at a council meeting or, you know, writing letters to the editor. It was another way to bring issues forward.
okay, it sounds like,
That one,
back in the 50s, 40s with the ward captains.
Yeah,
kind of,
it's not as political.
right. The Citizens Initiative Commission, as you see, has one person who has applied. She's the only one who ever applied for that, so that's never been activated.
So,
We don't have quorum, so no one, we've never met.
Right,
and could we be more proactive as council members to get people to apply?
Yep, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
so that could fall back on us. Good questions. Okay. So,
And the other question I had, I see the Architectural Review Board with 4 vacancies.
Yes.
Has anybody applied or?
No. Because well, you know that there are specific requirements for people who serve on that. board.
Right.
Just looking forward to who is missing. So we need someone from the Prince District, a building trades professional,
Right,
someone from Callow Hill, and someone from Penn's Commons.
okay,
okay, so Pence Commons in my district,
yes,
okay. Work on that, and if you can do, where do you have? Capitol
I have part of Capitol Hill.
Hill, okay,
I can work on that, and I have a small part of Prince
okay.
in District 6.
Okay, so the other thing is people who do not live in the city.
Yeah, and that's that spreadsheet that I attached
Right.
to all the meetings. There were one update. Yeah, Patty Bell from the library was not a resident and she had resigned her position, so she's been taken off this spreadsheet.
Okay.
And I know this came up with planning.
Right.
Is it all boards or only certain boards where they must be city residents?
So the charter says it's all boards and commissions. But council has made exceptions over the years because some of the positions are difficult to fill with city residents. And that's where the non-residents come into play. Many times it's building trades professionals with their master license requirements. There is the animal control board requires a veterinarian. There's some that are just really, really specific, and there's not necessarily someone that's been identified in the
Right.
community that can fit that specific.
Okay, okay.
So for planning, we found a city resident that was able to, okay, but I want to look at these more closely and then came up the next meeting with some recommendations, okay? Anything else, Melissa, from your end?
No,
Okay. And Shelley, we pretty well covered everything then.
Yes.
Alrighty, we're running, we have 10 minutes, to take a break before our next set of meetings, so I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
you got it.
Alrighty. We'll see you at the,
See-
and you'll probably be at, your Zoom meeting is down here, right? You're on standards of living, right, Melissa?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I'll be in the same room. I'm gonna end this meeting and we'll restart at 5.
Okay.
and then we will have, after our committee meetings, we will have a committee or
A
a
special
full council
Yeah.
meeting. So, okay,
All right. See ya.
see you.
Thank you.